Okay, so let's talk about one of the questions I get asked more than any other. How do I negotiate with the cable company or the airline or the phone company? Basically, how do I save money and make sure I do not get ripped off by a big corporation? So if you stay to the end, I will share with you a story of how I have never paid for a cable increase ever in my life. Plus, I'm going to share with you 4 key tips for how to succeed in your negotiations with the most difficult vendor. And at the end, I'm going to share with you a key question that you should always ask at the end of any negotiation you have with a big company. Okay, so let's start with the first. This one may sound simple, but it's key. Almost everything in a negotiation with a cable company, in a negotiation with the phone company, in a negotiation with an airline, almost everything is negotiable, despite what you might think. So I would say that my experience has been that most people just think that when they're told this is the price, or this is the procedure, or this is how it's done, that they kind of nod and accept it and say, ugh, this sucks. Or maybe they shake their heads, but they move on, right? They say it's company policy. And what I want to say is that in most situations, there's actually a way to negotiate the terms, even if it does seem like company policy. So I think the paradigmatic example is the increase that you'll get on your cable bill. So it turns out that, every so often, most cable companies will raise their prices. And typically when they do this, they don't really tell you. So if you're not watching the bill carefully, you don't even notice. But then if you do notice and you call the cable company, they say something like, oh yes, ma'am, this is our increase. This is the new policy you have. And the mistake is just to be like, okay, right? Instead, and this is something that I have literally done every single time I've had an increase in my cable company, you just say, well, I'm really disappointed about that. I would prefer not to spend any more money than what I've been spending. Almost always, they'll say something like, oh, well, let me take a look, right? And then they'll come up and they'll say, we do have a plan for this amount. And they'll actually give you less services. And then you have a choice, right? Do you say yes to that? Or they'll say, but for a little bit more, you can keep all the services you have. That's negotiable. Just say, oh no, I actually want to keep paying the same price for the same services. Almost without exception, right? This will work. The same can be said for if you get a late fee on a credit card. Never pay a late fee on a credit card. Always call the credit card company and say, oh, I'm so sad I just got this late fee. I wonder if you could waive it. Almost without exception, it will be waived. So this is a basic negotiation lesson with almost every vendor, which is it is negotiable. Okay, so now you're in the negotiation. Here is my second tip. No matter how angry you are at the company or how awful the person on the other end of the call is, the rep on the other side is your friend. They are the person who can help you. Therefore, treat them like they are your friend. You want to do everything you can to develop some rapport with them. So let me tell you a recent story I had at a place most of us hate to go to, which is the Registry of Motor Vehicles, or RMV. So I had to get a new title for my new car and update my driver's license. There I am standing online, and let me just say the rep at the RMV was the worst version of your worst nightmare of someone in a state RMV's office. I mean, she was just barking at every single person, chopping their heads off. And I was watching and thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be tough. And in the first minute or two into the conversation, she is equally snipey with me. But I kept on framing everything as, I'd be so grateful for your help. Thank you for letting me know how I filled that in wrong. I'd be so curious if you could just tell me what the right answer to this question is on this form, because I clearly am not smart enough to know. This is a true story. By the end of this interaction, I had learned that this poor RMV representative was actually a night nurse in the city hospital. She was in the ICU unit the night before and had gone without sleep in a severely understaffed ICU unit. I felt like at the end, I had become her best friend. She expedited my registration. She was super friendly. I was starting to feel really badly for the people behind me because she was just going on and on telling her story. But standing in and just remembering she's my friend, I'm going to develop rapport, completely changed this interaction. Third, frame all of your requests as a need for help. The idea that you feel stuck and that you know this other person has the power to make a difference for you. So hearkening back to that story with the RMV rep, that is exactly what I did there. Fourth, sometimes you'll be speaking with somebody and they're either completely unfriendly, like you can't turn them, or they're sympathetic, but they say they don't have authority, or that's the company policy, or that's all they can do. That is a moment when many people cave, but you want to try to avoid doing that. Staying as polite as you can, thank them for all their help, and simply say, I'm still not satisfied with this result. I know that you've tried really hard for me. I'd like to speak with someone else, perhaps a supervisor or someone who might have some more authority. That's really hard to do because you're angry, right? But basically, don't make them feel bad. Make them feel like they've done all they can, but change the players. Now, here's a really important tip because I've seen myself make a mistake on this and I've seen other people make a mistake. When they get the supervisor, they start off frustrated and angry. This does not win you friends. Instead, when the new person comes on board, begin by saying how appreciative you are of the last person who you spoke with and how you realize they were working really hard to be helpful, but you're still stuck. You still have a problem and you're hoping that this new person can solve it. So in other words, you're starting from a point of appreciation. You're starting from a point of thanks. That kind of framing motivates this other person who probably only hears angry people and complaints, and it motivates them to a point of actually wanting to help you. Okay, so I promised you that I would give you one more tip. This is a tip you can use at the end of any of these conversations or negotiations. Even if you've gotten all you want, I always say, thank you. This was incredibly helpful. I'm curious, is there anything else you can offer or suggest or do that would give me an even better deal or give me an even better outcome here? Often they'll say, there actually is another plan. Or, well, if you called this person, you could also get this discount. The worst possible thing they could say is, no, that's it. I'm done with you. Fair enough, right? But in other words, I'm always thinking there's probably something else in this person's list of ways to satisfy the customer that maybe I haven't touched on yet, so let me ask them. To review our 4 pieces of advice. So first, consider almost everything as being negotiable, despite what you might think. Second, no matter how angry you are at the company or how awful that rep is, remember they are your friend here and treat them like your friend, develop rapport. 3, frame all of your requests as you in need of help, you feeling stuck and knowing that they can make a difference for you. And 4th, if the person you're speaking to simply says it's out of their authority or they don't have the power, stay friendly, ask for someone who can help you, and then begin with that new person, casting them in the role of hero and helper. So if you want to continue learning and improving as a negotiator, watch this next video, which is when should you not negotiate at all? And in the spirit of the what else can you do for me, I'd be really grateful if you could hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, and like this video. Thanks for watching. I'm Bob Bordone. Let's keep negotiating together. Okay, you know you want to learn when you shouldn't negotiate. Keep on watching.